back and still explosion continues. So, Daktari,
Yes.
we were talking about the long-term effect
Yes.
of climate change,
Yes.
and you tell us more.
Yeah, so I was talking about let people brace for more. We will see, we might see the increase in the amount of water in the sea. We might continue seeing rise in temperatures. We might start seeing new pests and diseases in our farm. And I think just a few seconds ago we talked about the experience that we had in Kenya here, Nairobi, the sand dune, the blast and the storm that came through Nairobi. And I saw some photos and videos. Nairobians couldn't believe that what that was happening. We hear that in Australia, in China, but having that scenario of a sandstorm that passed the way. I mean, it's sometimes the way I see some movies, and the spiral of wind coming, is a movie, but that was real in Nairobi. It's an occurrence that personally I have never experienced in my life, but it happened. Those are some of the long-term changes and effects that we should be expecting, and we should therefore start thinking about mitigation. I mean, how to alleviate this, preparedness, adaptation. We need to think about that going forward. We cannot sit down like the way I saw in the television and start saying, Serikali saidia, Serikali saidia. Serikali, they do have their portion of intervention, but us, if you sit and build a structure on a riverbed, or people living along the Laga, you'll be carried away by water. And you have hand in Isiolo here the other day. I think it was Onyiro burst their banks, and they carried the animals and people. I mean, we must start thinking about adaptation and preparedness. The long-term effects of climate change and global warming is going to be huge. It's going to be big. We cannot estimate right now, and everyone is discussing that. But if we look at the trends from where we are coming from to where we are today, I don't expect that in the next 5 years or 10 years, things are going to go back to what they used to be in 1960 or 70s. I haven't seen that, and it would be difficult for me to believe that now things will be okay. And I mean, even in our county government, where we are, or where we are locally, I mean, going and just thinking that you will plant trees along the riverbank, some baboons there and trees, and thinking that now we tell the communities that we are dealing with this issue. It's going to be long. It's going to be tough. It will require a lot. I appreciate what everyone is doing, including our government, whether national or county. But there is a lot more that needs to be done in terms of, I mean, developing a well and smart regulatory framework on what we need to do, thinking about rehabilitation, thinking about the I mean, adaptation, and also the conservation. These are going, I mean, moving forward, these are going to be the main pillars of addressing this issue. So, I mean, just to conclude this, the impact is going to be big. It is going to be costly, and we will be, all of us, we are being called upon to take some action wherever we are. Yes.
Wow, that's so good.
Yes.
So actually, Lord, there is that it's a major challenge in agriculture and even in our lives today.
Yes.
So it calls even every one of us to take
absolutely
to take a step.
absolutely yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is this climate change affecting natural disasters? Actually, like we've talked about the wind, we've seen the flood, we've seen drought. How is this climate connected, and how is it affecting the natural disasters?
Let me talk about one disaster that we are dealing with in our county here. A drying of our rivers and streams. You have seen that?
Yes.
Everyone now is trying to see how we can handle more water in our, and I'm sure everyone has forgotten that the river Kadita is drying up. Now we have a lot of rain. The river looks like it is enough, but just come February this year, there will be no water there.
Yeah.
It will be dry, completely dry. Now, the climate change itself, like I have mentioned, let me say global warming, and we are associating that with the increase in our atmospheric temperature, is one of the major cause of the depression of the glacier on top of Mount Kenya. Now, what we know now, and we are very sure of, is the amount of ice and glacier on top of our mountain here is dwindling. And by the year 2050, there will be no more ice or glacier on top of that mountain. Now, do you know the source of our rivers in this county? The source of the river in this county, most of the rivers you are seeing here, is the ice and glacier on top of Mount Kenya. Now, because that amount, it melts, and once the ice melts, the water will percolate through the rocks and the mountain, and they end up coming out where we are in form of rivers and streams. Now, because the amount there has been depleted so much, what is left to melt and be water that forms part of our rivers and stream is very little. So as the ice disappears on top of Mount Kenya, our rivers here are drying up.
What will we do?
There will be no water, there will be no stream. Where I come from, there was a huge stream there. I remember when I was a child, my father used to, help me cross that river. When he used to send me on the other side to go and buy a few things from a shop, he had to make me pass that river, because sometimes it would take me away or carry me away. Now when I go home, my kids are playing on that stream, looking for tadpoles and small these other riverbed animals. The point is the climate change and global warming is a major cause of all these natural disasters that we are seeing today. Rise in temperatures, high rate of glacier and ice melting on top of Mount Kenya and Mount Kilimanjaro on the other side. And the long-term effect of that is when there will be no more ice to melt to feed our rivers and stream, then all the riverbeds here will be dry. That's a disaster. Now, I've been talking to farmers and people who come from this region of ours, happier. The T-zone, the dairy farmers, the horticulture farmers, and I've been telling them and warning them, you guys here, you'll be begging for food if you are not careful, because some of the rivers, because majority of the rivers we are talking about, they are on this upper part of our county. So when they are gone,
these people must look for alternative source of water. It is very difficult to sink a well on this side because our aquifers, the underground dams and reservoirs on this upper part of our county, they are very deep, extremely deep. It's not like downstream on the lower part of our county. You know, down part of our county, you can have a borehole within, I mean, that 40 meters. But here, sometimes you sink 300 or 400 meters deep, and sometimes you don't find water. The aquifers. So the alternative source of water, so that we can continue doing farming here, and having water to drink is going to be extremely costly. We will look for dams so that we can have some water, or conserve some water. Like now, when we have a lot of rains, we will have underground tanks and other methods of water conservation and storage. But basically, it's going to be difficult. So that is one major disaster: drying of our riverbeds and streams, and that is right here with us. The other natural disaster that we are talking about is the emergency of new pests and diseases. Right now, we used to read, the locusts, in Sudan and Central Africa some few years ago. But now we have 4 armyworm here right with us. The last few years. Where did it come from?
Like this one in tomato, tuta obsulata.
Tuta absolute. That's another one. Because of the changes we are experiencing now. The climate change effect. We are having a new environment where pests and diseases never used to thrive before. We are having now an environment where they can easily thrive. That is why we are having 4 armyworm can easily survive in the neighborhoods here. The environment is becoming nice and good for them. These changes, and we never know the next pest. You never know the next disease that is going to happen. Do you recall? A few years ago, when we had this disease in the South Lift, the maize necrotic disease, we never used to have some of the pests and diseases that we are experiencing today. And anytime we have a new pest disease, you can imagine the losses that 4 armyworm is causing on maize. Some of the farmers have completely, left maize farming as we are talking. The economical impact when we are buying those kind of things, that's another disaster. I have mentioned about the sandstorms that we experience in Nairobi. Now, today we are talking about the floods. All of them, they are here. So that's true. When we say that climate change and global warming is a major cause of the natural disasters that we are experiencing today, that is very true, Kennedy. And I think it is important that our people get to know this, so that when you are told to preserve the forest near you, you are not doing it for the government. You are doing it for your own sake, and for the generations that will be coming, for your own children and grandchildren that are coming. When you are told to stop burning plastics anyhow, or when we are told to think on how we can conserve and rehabilitate some of the natural resources that we have, then we understand that it's not the government, it's not for the government, it is for us. Did you see what happened in West Pokot a few weeks ago? An entire mountain came down and killed families. And neighborhood, everyone now there in the village is in Otum and Sigol there, they are crying. Now, 20 years ago, these people are told, to stop invading the forest. They didn't hear. They thought that was political. They decided that this natural resource is in their environment. It is theirs, and they can consume it. They can use it. They entered the place. They cut down all the trees. They built houses. They dwelt there. that's where their homes are today. Now,
When you cut down trees on those mountain and ridges, when it rains, water will easily percolate. There are no deeper roots to hold on to the soil as we are talking. And so when water rains, because there is nothing to hold it,
Yeah.
I mean, the water will make it loose, and now you have a landslide that is killing an entire village. These are some of the disasters that we are talking about, and so we will continue having this discussion, a discourse on what needs to be, what we need to do, but we are having evidence that are causing floods, and if you destroy forests and environment around you, I mean, you'll be the one crying.
Yeah.
If you go, I'm always thinking about Mount Kenya here, and some of the farmers on the south or even central here. Some of them are very close to those mountains. If they cut down those trees, we'll be talking about the same kind of thing, disasters. So a few years ago, we had some landslides. I think some part of the south, Mel South there, in 1990s and early 2000 there. So I mean, that is happening, and global warming and climate change is a major cause of these natural disasters that we have.
In fact, the meteorological department report that these rains are to continue throughout this month.
Yes, yes.
So people need to take note of that.
Yes.
They need to play a role on this.
Yes, yes.
It brought us to something else. Why climate change and what are the causes? Okay, are we the initiators? Are we contributing somewhere on this climate change? Maybe you've traveled quite a number of countries. I don't know, maybe the causes of climate change over those countries, is it the same as in Kenya? And
yeah, thank you, Kennedy. Let's talk about the causes first, and then also we address the issues whether it is predicted, although scientists right now have, I mean, proved beyond any shadow of doubt that humans are the major cause of climate change. And the one way of looking at that is the increase of the amount of carbon emission in the atmosphere. That is one major cause. Now, what carbon emission does when they are emitted into our atmosphere, on top of our atmosphere, they form a blanket, a kind of a vinyl, a kind of a layer, kind of a glass layer. Now, that layer usually, so when the sun spectrum or the ray, when they come down through that vinyl, layer of carbon emissions there, they pass through and they are at higher energy levels. But when they pass through and they strike here, where we are living on the ground, of course, those radiations are reflected back, but they are reflected at lower energy levels. So when they are reflected back, they are unable to penetrate through the carbon layer that is formed above us. Now, so what is happening is that energy is coming inside the house we are in, the environment, the atmosphere. So energy is coming in, but it is not able to escape back. So that energy is accumulating in our atmosphere, and it is that accumulation that is causing rise in temperatures. And so that is why we are talking about the global warming. And because of that accumulation of energy within the atmosphere where we are living, temperatures are slowly rising. And these temperatures, as they rise, then you know what happens when temperature rise. So if you were at a region where your average temperature, like in Greenland, where average temperatures sometime would be 0 degrees, and over 50 years, temperatures have risen to 6-7 degrees. Today we are talking about in that area 7 degrees, 8 degrees of these temperatures. What that means to ice? It means that now ice in Greenland, in Antarctic, in the Arctic, on top of Mount Kenya, on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, okay?
Yeah.
The ice and glacier on those areas is now melting at an alarming speed. Now, if it is melting at an alarming speed, then we are expecting the volumes of water now also they are also increasing. We also expect, because of rise in temperature, the amount of moisture that is generated from our oceans is huge. So a lot of high temperatures will cause a lot of moisture from the sea, and I mean, a lot of moisture in our atmosphere is now being pushed, I mean, in the inland, and that is the same moisture that is now pouring down on us and bringing heavy rainfall. What are we saying? Increase in carbon emissions coming from industries, okay?
Yeah.
Coming from burning of fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And that's with all the cars that we are using. Burning of the garbage. And in this country, all the garbage that we are collecting, we are just burning it.
Yeah.
We don't recycle some of this garbage. All those emissions, they are moving up and forming a layer here, and they are making our atmosphere have higher temperatures, or they are causing what we are calling increase in temperatures, and for that reason now we're in trouble. That layer is what people call about, talk about greenhouse effect.
Yeah.
The carbon layer formed above us causes what we are calling the greenhouse effect. Same thing as when you enter into a greenhouse or in a tunnel where we are growing plants. You have visited the greenhouses here in Timau or in other places, and when you enter into a greenhouse, you will feel that temperatures are different. They are higher.
Yeah, they are.
That is exactly what is happening with our atmosphere. That we are in a greenhouse right now. Temperatures are increasing inside where we are because of the carbon emissions being produced by industries, the cars that we are having, the rails and the trains that we are developing, the industries. And today, of course, you are aware that China is leading in manufacturing, and they are the major producers of these carbon emissions. We have India also, and these countries don't want to get so much involved in this discussion, because this discussion is likely going to bring down the economy. But countries like Norway, Finland, Japan, they have moved on to renewable energy. Some are in nuclear energy, others are in the solar energy. And so they are not so much worried about the burning of the fossil fuel. And so they are much more ready to engage in climate change than China, India. And it's very unfortunate, a country like US, when Obama left office, he had already put US on the track of addressing climate change. But when the new president Trump came on board, he withdrew America from the treaty that was already signed. So America is back on coal. America is back on burning fossil fuel. They are not. Is not so much interested in this we are calling clean green energy anymore. So let me say yes. You are right. We are the main or the major contributors or causes of climate change that we are experiencing today. Humans are the main contributors of the changes that we are seeing in our environment today. Yes.
And that's why the farmers are complaining, and they don't know. they don't know that's exactly
Absolutely, farmers they are, and they are right, because sometimes we don't go down to where they are to explain some of these things, and I hope that different institutes, organizations, offices that are tasked with this responsibility, especially extension, we should be able to explain to our farmers what is happening, but not just explaining what is happening to our environment or the climate around us, but also what they can do to the environment. And perhaps this discussion, I don't know whether you want to know this, should bring us to this question then. Then what do we need to do to address this?
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. And on the same note, like farmers, yes, they are complaining.
Yes.
There's flood. There is a drought. There is a lot of complaint that they are bringing on board, but they don't know what will happen.
Yes.
And one of the big four agenda is that the Kenyan government is planning by 2022 to have enhanced manufacturing industry and food security.
Yeah.
But how will that one be possible if the farmers are complaining and yet they are not producing something from their farms? What will they be having to manufacture to give people? Or will there be food security? I don't know.
It's we are born in a country, a nation, and a continent that has a mixture of good and bad. When we're talking about our diversity and our natural resources, we are so much proud of that. But we are also people who are worst affected by the climate change and global warming. It is not easy for me to say directly what farmers will do or whether government is going to achieve its own agenda of food security. But I've been here long enough, and the issue of food security has not been on discussion just the other day. It's not President Uhuru Kenyatta who came up out this. He's made it a pillar, food security, agriculture and food security. But this is a matter that we have been discussing for the last 20, 30 years, food security. It's not easy to achieve. And what might compound and make it difficult for us to achieve this is while government is investing on matters to do with food security, there are other unforeseen factors being caused by climate change that the government does not see. For example, now, as the government invests in agriculture and food security, you know now in Tana River, farmers will have nothing. Their animals and their farms, all of them have been carried away by water. That's what makes us go back to the things that we should have come out a long time ago. And I shouldn't say this, it's an issue that is being discussed nationally. Some of these things would have been addressed long time ago if we were able to invest in dams, okay? But what you are Kenyan like me, you know what has happened in dams in Rift Valley, dams in Central, dams all over. We plan dams, we put money there, we don't see dams.
What happens?
Some of this, so it is a mess. So it's a difficult question. You are asking what we are going to manufacture, whether we will address this issue of food security, but it's going to be very tough because we keep on making progress, one step forward, then we make 2 steps backward.
We go back to where we were.
Backward. We should be right now. I wish we had that dam in Kitui County that has never been there. That dam would have taken a lot of water, and that is the water that we would have used, to do irrigation. So let's hope that in the near future, we will be serious in doing investment that will help our farmers address issues of agriculture and and food security matters.
As we wind up, I believe that you are still learning more from this. And as we wind up, maybe you can tell us now, from the point you had brought earlier, what can we do to prevent climate change? And what exactly can we do? Is there any way that we can intervene to prevent this climate change? What are some of the mitigations?
We don't have enough time to have this matter, properly addressed. But just to mention, and these are, we have 4 major pillars that have been discussed worldwide, globally, on matters to do on climate change. 4 of them, sometimes I call them RACE, RRAC. One of them, we must develop an efficient, effective regulatory framework that is going to help us and shape up in order to address these matters. County government have a major role to play. We cannot just keep on burning garbage there. We are also causing emissions. How we are destroying our forests and those kind of things. County government have a major role to play. National government have a major role to play on regulatory framework. Number 2, rehabilitation. A lot of destruction has been done in many areas, forests, conservancies, and so on and so forth. We must embark on rehabilitation, restoration, bringing back what we have already destroyed. That way, we will be trying to mitigate those changes. Number 3, adaptation. Please tell our people that this thing is not going to go away tomorrow. Therefore, start putting in place measures on how you can live with this. We must adapt. We must look for ways. And this, we must invest and bring on board technologies. They are there, they are proven. Water conservation measures, storage issues. So adaptation is going to be a key pillar in trying to address this issue. And number 4, I talked about 4 pillars. It is then conservation. Keeping what we have in good shape, stopping destruction, conserving what we have. A lot of destruction has already been done. Let's agree it is already done. So let's do rehabilitation there. But let's please stop doing more destruction to our environment. Let's start conserving the forest that we have. Let's start conserving the natural resources that we have. By doing so, then we will be able to address some of the issues of climate change. And so, under the 4 pillars, regulatory framework, rehabilitation, adaptation, and conservation, every one of us has a role to play. You have a role to play. You can plant a tree. You have a role to play. You can stop throwing away bottles and plastic materials on our streets. Because those ones, county government will collect them, take them to Ngonga forest, burn them there carelessly, and we are contributing to carbon emissions. The county government can put in place a regulatory framework that is going to help us separate our waste. So that in your house, you will have a bin for plastic, a bin for grass, a bin for organic matter, and a bin for papers that can be burnt. So that plastics, all of them can be collected and be taken somewhere for recycling. Glasses can be taken somewhere for recycling. Organic matter can be composted, and we can sell that compost to our farmers and other people. These papers can be taken for recycling. If we do this, we will not have any garbage in our counties in this country. And countries like Norway. The other day I saw a city in Turkey they are buying waste. They finish their waste. They have no more waste. they have ships all over the world collecting garbage. They come here in Africa and collect garbage here because they have finished all the waste they had. I think each one of us has a role to play in trying to address the issue of climate change and global warming. And if we do this, then we will have a beautiful country and a beautiful country, and then we will have a better nation to hand over to our children and our grandchildren and many more generations that are going to come. You have been given this opportunity and this country as a loan, and please take it back with interest to our kings. Okay? I hope you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not a gift to consume and finish. This you have been loaned by our maker. Please take it back to him so that our children and our grandchildren will have a better place to live even many years when we are gone. Yes.
And maybe some people, they would love to know more about this. Maybe you can tell us maybe about the work that you've done and some of the papers that people can still get the information on the same food security and all that.
I have, if you go to Google and you Google Eric Mori, you will see some of the work that I have been doing that is related to research. But beyond this, I work with organizations. We help each other to help our communities. Right now, I'm working with the Ministry of Agriculture, trying to help farmers in the area of apiculture and beekeeping. I've been working with Kenya Red Cross. He was my employer some few years ago. I have had programs with World Vision and Christian Aid at different levels. So you can find me anytime. I work at Mary University Department of Agriculture. That is a school of agriculture and food science. You can talk to Kennedy. You know where I'm always in. You can find me. So I'm always available to have this discussion as we move forward, and we can help our communities have a better living and mitigate some of the effects that we are having related to climate change and global warming.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kennedy, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for keeping in tune to Destiny TV, a station that impacts your life. After that, I do believe that you've learned something. Of course, we are continuing to boresha ukulima, and remember, this is the great explorers discussion. So let's meet here next time as we continue to explore more on the field of agriculture. Thank you so much.